Hello and welcome into another Chi Time, your wandering well-being show with me, Clara Apollo. And tonight I have for you, or this afternoon, or whenever it is you're listening or watching this, I have for you the agnostic philosopher, Mr. Tim Freke. Now, you might have heard of him. He's written 25 plus books, and he's just rewritten his most famous one, I think, which is called Lucid Living. And so we're going to have a lovely chat with him about the writing process and about maybe encouraging you to write as well, what conscious writing is all about, and how he helps to bring these ancient sort of philosophical texts to the modern day, to the contemporary, so that we can actually understand them. Now, Tim also runs really wonderful retreats all around the world, but he's based in Glastonbury in the UK. So this is where he is coming in for us today. So welcome back to Chi Time, Mr. Tim Freke. Hello.
Hello. It's a delight to be with you again.
I know it's been a little while, and Tim has been down to conscious living events in in Bournemouth a little while back when we first started it all, and we've also done a little bit of ChiTimeTV, so it feels really right for you to be back on the screen once again for those of you that are watching. But of course, you do quite a lot of little movies and things. You send out things to people, and you seem quite au fait with this medium. Has it been something that's taken a while to get used to, or was it like a duck to water?
Duck to water, I think. I just love communication. I always have, and people think of me as a writer because probably I've written a lot of books, but I'm not really. I'm a communicator, and whatever it takes. So I love speaking live. I love using film. I love writing books. I love communicating, and I love communicating things which I am passionate about and which I think are deep. I enjoy the surface of life. I mean, there's time for the surface, but I love the depths of life. I just find them thrilling. So it's a delight for me. I get the pleasure, honor of traveling around the world talking about really deep stuff in every medium I can lay my hands on, to explore it, with people, to look at what this strange journey is that we're on together and to make the most of it.
And it's that word deep, isn't it? You talk about the deep awake state or deep awakening, or even the big love is deep, isn't it? And this is deep, broad and wide. This is, like, as you say, it's interesting to look at the surface of our lives, but actually it's way more interesting to dive in and have a little look at the mystery. And one of your books was called The Mystery Experience, wasn't it? And is this kind of where you're leading us to, the deep dive within?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned I've got my book which has just come out, Lucid Living, and I might have to just take you through it because the mystery. Well, you'll see why. Let me just talk about Lucid Living, and then I'll come on to the mystery experience. Lucid Living was a book that I wrote. I'm guessing 12 years ago now, something like that. Quite a long time ago. When I first published it, it's a very short little book, and it's a book in which I have tried to convey the very essence of the deepest aspect of spirituality, which is to do with awakening, with seeing who you are and what life is in a profoundly different way, which transforms your experience of living. And I'd written all of these books, many, many books about Buddhism, Hinduism, Sufism, Christianity, all of them, shamanism, everything, saying, look, at their heart, they're all about the same thing. Although they're very different on the surface, underneath, they're about human beings who've had this same experience of waking up. And they try and say the same things in different language. So how can I say this now? So what I did with Lucid Living, which was an extremely hard book to write, I'm very proud of it when I'd done it, was to just give people 7 insights which allow them to get this experience in modern language. You don't have to understand all of these foreign traditions. There's no funny words or quotes. It's just look at your own experience in this moment. So what I've done now, when I first did it, it's very small. You can read it in an hour, probably less, although probably you want to read it again and again, I found, is that it's a book which is instantly transformative.
Mm.
So I was very, very pleased when we first put it to publishers. No one would publish it because it was so strange. It was like, tiny little thing, you can't publish this, It's like no one will read it. So I did it myself, but it was a big success. And then it's been published, and now it's being published again.
Well,
It's kind of
yes,
regarded as a
quite.
bit of.
It is. It's one of those
Again?
seminal tomes, I think, even though it's a very slender seminal tome. And I thank you for it. It was the one that I gave my son, and it went round their whole band. And I think they've still got it in their flat, as if like, you need to read this.
Fantastic.
This makes sense.
That's the one.
Yeah.
It's a great book for giving people.
And also because you've done it in different languages, I think there was a chap at one of your talks, Lothar, I don't know if you remember him, but he bought the French version for his daughter. I'm like, yeah, bingo. And it's
gone out, Japanese and French and Italian and Spanish. And
so isn't that lovely? It's that idea of translating. So you were translating the ancient texts, which are all a bit mysterious to us, and then into English, and then they're translated again on into other languages. And now you have revised it, and you've put a new insight on it.
What I've done is I've added an 8th insight, because my own journey has moved on and it's become more and more bedded in the personal. The waking up is to something which is beyond Tim, but it ends up back in Tim, just like it wakes up to something beyond Clara, but ends up back in you. And so I really wanted to emphasize this coming back into our own human journey and how it changes how we make the human journey. So it was already there, but I've brought it out. And that in this 8th insight, and the 8th, I'll give it to you. The 8th insight I added was the simple idea that you are the one. And why I love that as an insight to end on, and you need to get what it means, is the two sides to it. That on the one hand, it's saying, look, there's one of us. When you wake up to the depths of your being, there is truly one of us meeting itself in all these other forms. But also, you are the one in your life. You are the oneness of life waking up as this particular individual. And you are the one that can bring these depths, bring this love, bring this new awareness into life. No one else can do it for you. It's your privilege to do it for yourself and to share it with everyone in your life. And that's always where I want to end up. You wake up to this profound oneness, to God, if you like, in traditional language. And then you bring it into your individual life so that you are deep self-empowered.
Yeah, I like that.
Deep self-empowered.
One of the things that I really love about that Lucid Living book, it was talking about awareness. Your awareness is what it is that connects us to everybody else's awareness. And that when you talk about the one, you say it's God, but what about the one in me? It's your awareness. And I'm like, thank you. That was a bit of an aha. So...
Yeah, these old-fashioned words are dangerous because they come with so many misconceptions, which is why I play with them and often avoid them. You won't find that word in Lucid Living. You won't find any of those words. You'll find words like you said, like awareness, because what they're really saying is, look, there's one awareness waking up as every individual awareness, and that is the essential message from all of the mystical traditions of the world. But hey, it's like, take the scientific story of the modern world, and it's kind of the same in a different language. It's saying that we've all come from the singularity. You are the universe. What else could you be? What else could you possibly be? You are the universe looking at itself, tasting itself, talking to itself, trying to understand itself. And when we get trapped into just thinking we're just this little separate thing in something, we don't see that we are the thing we're in. What else could we possibly be? We are it. It is all us. But this is like a wave on the ocean arising, and you're like a wave on the ocean arising, and we're meeting each other. And when we're conscious of those depths, as well as the surface, there's this profound connectivity. And that connectivity is experienced as love. There's a love of being, of life, of each other.
And this is the big love that you talk to us about, and that you just inspire them. And I'm feeling
the big love.
It's the big love, Tim.
Yeah, that's where the big love comes from. And so to me, the very simple essence is wake up to this oneness and then live from that big love. That is the very essence of the message that's been coming down to us through the centuries and which is now being articulated clearer and clearer and clearer to more and more people, because we are evolving onto another level now. And which is why it needs to come out, and we need to get it very clear. So you know, I'm a philosopher. My job is to say it good, and that's what I try and do in every way that I can. And lucid living's a little version. I should have it here, shouldn't I? And show it to you. I'll go and get it in a minute when we play some music. I'll go and get the book, and then I can go, here it is, and you can see it.
So
and then you started with the Mystery Experience, Clive, didn't you? Because the Mystery Experience is my latest book, but before the re-release of Lucid Living. And it's a great book. If people want, it's the opposite. It's a sizable book full of ideas, packed with ideas. But I've reworked the Mystery Experience, and we're re-releasing it in a new form with new material, much smaller. And it's come out so well. It's called Deep Awake. So there's a new book coming out in December, which I'm building up to, called Deep Awake, which captures this whole new way of approaching awakening that I've been sharing all around the world now for the last period of my life. And it's the clearest articulation yet of this wider philosophy of awakening, and why it's different to other things, which I don't think are helping us so much.
Wow. So, Tim, you're perfectly up for praising your own material then, as you say grow and as you get more insights and again coming to the clarity. Yes, it's great to read lots and lots of words and things, but people don't have that much time in this day and age, and you need to be succinct and clear with what your message is to get it through to them. So this is what you've been doing then. You've rewritten Lucid Living, you've rewritten the Mystery Experience, and I believe you've also written a completely new book. So it's been lots of tapping on the computer.
Yes, it's all leading up to that, really, Clara. It's all leading up to the new thing, which I'm just, we're going through the editing now, and it's done. And that's a book called Soul Story, Evolution and the Purpose of Life.
Okay, well, let's have a little chat about that after we've played one of your first tracks, because we do need to go to a tune now, and you need to go and get your...
Let's go to a tune.
So let's go back to the whole big love thing, because this track, I believe, has been inspired by that very sentence, words. Do explain why you've chosen.
It has. It's a tune by some very dear friends of mine in a band called Seize the Day, who are kind of political activists and great folk musicians, very inspiring people, do amazing things in the world. And one of them was very moved by a particular book I'd written and wrote this song, Big Love, based on that book. So it's a song I love for that reason. And it's a song I use at my retreats. And I hope people will really enjoy it, because they probably won't have heard it before.
No, they won't. Which was the book that inspired it then?
It was actually a book called The Laughing Jesus, which was one of the books I did when I was writing about Christian Gnosticism, but it was the bridge to lucid living. Lucid living and the Jesus mystery, the Laughing Jesus, kind of overlap. So they're very similar stuff in them. The lucid living is the much shorter version. So you could say it was inspired by lucid living, really.
Well, everything's inspired by lucid living, isn't it? The good stuff. And you've always loved music as well, haven't you? It's always been part of what you do, bring through, and
it's communication, right? You know, for me, it's about communication. So when I was younger, seems like another lifetime now, I was a musician, and for most of my early life, I wrote music and played music, and before that, I wrote plays. So you know, it's like I've done all sorts, but it's the medium. Doesn't matter to me, but the content has always been the same thing. It's been like, how can we explore the depths of life, and how can we share this oneness and love with each other, and bring it into the world.
And so sound and the vibrations of sound, they just reach us on a whole different level, don't they?
I always think of philosophy, because I have this love affair with music on the one hand and with philosophy on the other hand, in my particular journey. And I like them because I feel like they're really opposite in the way that music changes your consciousness instantly. It's like just bang, it's there, and you're, whoa, I'm different. But when you turn the music off, it tends to just go. Philosophy you have to work at. it's not all, sometimes it just happens, but often, it's like you're looking at something and then there's a moment of insight. Eventually you go, oh, but it can stay with you for life. Once you really get an insight, you will be different forever. It will actually just stay, and you will be able to travel with it.
Yeah, I like that. That's great. Okay, let's play your tune by Seize the Day. This is Big Love, and we'll come back with Tim Freke after that. Hello, so you're back into your Chi Time with me, Clara Apollo, and tonight we have for you the Gnostic philosopher, Mr. Tim Freke, who's been chatting about rewriting 2 of his books and writing a new one, and then how cool music is. So he has it for you. He's holding it up.
I have it now. Here, brand new cover. Smart, isn't it? It's nice.
It is actually. So that's
Lucid Living.
Black and white. I'm sorry, I talked over you there. What did you say?
Sorry. It's got the new subtitle as well, which is Lucid Living, Experience Your Life Like a Lucid Dream. So it's, I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, black and white and to the point. And lucid dreaming, Tim. Because I know Charlie Morley has worked with you as well, hasn't he? He's been on Chi Time as well, and has done a lot of work with the lucid dream state. And the very interesting was talking to him about doing Qigong practice whilst in a lucid dream. Really good.
Yeah, he's a great guy, Charlie. And so he does the lucid dreaming. I do the lucid living. Of course, there's crossovers, but that's what I'm doing, is going, okay, Charlie, if you want lucid dreaming, Charlie's your man. And a lot of people come to me because of lucid living and say, look, I always point them to Charlie. But lucid living, how you can experience this now. I can pretty much, I think I can, the book will show you. And if you come to one of my events, even better, I can point you directly to what I mean. Because I think the big message for me is, this is something you can experience, not just other people, but you. You can experience it. And the most the sign that you're getting it is this extraordinary big love that we just heard in the song.
Yeah.
That's when that kicks in, there's no missing it. People say to my events, when you go, Tim, you say you're going to wake, I'll experience an awakening, but will I know when it's happened? And my feeling is that you'll know. You can't miss it, because it's just such a big love. Yeah. And it feels like coming home. It's safe. It feels like, oh, I was born to experience this. This is where I should be. And that's what I love to see, is to get a group of people together, whether it's in Glastonbury here, where I do most of it, or Tokyo, or wherever it is, and see people relax into being themselves, and to see that this revelation that we're all drawn to is not of something other than what we are. It's of something so close we don't see it. So that there's a huge relief. And it's not like, oh, it's actually the opposite. It's like, oh, wow, this is such a lovely surprise, but it's the surprise of coming home.
Yes. Yeah. Beautiful. The surprise of coming home to who you really are. But you do hold such a beautiful space for people. And I think a lot of the anxiety that goes on in our world at the moment is people don't know which way to turn or who to trust, indeed. And something about you that is inimitable trustworthy.
Well, thank you. I mean, to me, that's, when we talked earlier about with Deep Awake, the Deep Awake life, that I'm trying to put forward a different form of spirituality for the 21st century. One of the central strands of that is that I think we need to respect each other. So the days of a guy who's got a funny name, who's going to tell you everything and confront your ego and knock you down until you wake up, I think those have gone. I think we need to explore together, and we need to be able to trust each other, and we need to forget this idea that there's something in us that needs to be attacked or destroyed or belittled. We're all belittled enough. We need actually the opposite. We need to love each other and ourselves, and we need to bring out the individuality in us as an expression of this deep oneness. So for me, the biggest thing is to create an environment where people can trust, because there's a lot in spirituality which isn't very trustworthy. There's a lot of abuse, straightforwardly, actually, and always has been. And I'd like to see those days go, so we can be much more real with each other, humble and real. Because then because we're all in the same boat, aren't we? We're all on this mad journey. We've all got problems we face. We're all got a great goodness inside us if we look deep enough, and we're the same.
Yeah, that's lovely. We are the same inside, and we're part of the bigger continuum. It's really interesting what you just said about a certain amount of abuse going on in the spirituality market. In there, of course, religion has abused people as well, and is still continuing to do.
Really, I mean that's kind of what I mean. Really, I mean the spirituality and religion have always had a very close relationship. You know, often been seen as the same thing. What's happening now is that something new is emerging, and we're able to leave behind the dogmatic stuff of the past, which was much more to do with a fixed identity, a cultural identity, and keep the essence, which is about waking up to oneness and love, which transcends all of those limitations. And that's the big thing that's happening. I'm, you know, it is happening, but it will happen at the rate to which we all engage with that process.
So when do you think conscious awakening began on the planet?
As soon as there was consciousness. You know, it's been, you know, we're on a continuum. Evolution has been on a billions of years of journey, 13 billion years plus, to get to this conversation. And through that journey, that it's constantly become greater. And that hasn't stopped. It's just now, it happened to begin with on a physical level to create the universe. It's happened on a biological level to create the biosphere and all the vast diversity of life. And now it's happening in soul. It's happening on the psychological level, the soul level, where we're meeting now. I mean, right now you and I are connecting, but we're not doing it physically. I mean, obviously, because we're not with each other physically. We're on the internet, but not even that. Beyond that, we're connecting in psyche, in soul. We're connecting through ideas which have no physical form. And the evolution that's happening in this conversation is happening in an intangible sphere. And that's where everything is happening now. And that's where the evolution of consciousness is happening.
So the evolution of consciousness has actually expanded and evolved, you know, like as we're speaking, also the people listening to this or watching this are also getting into that whole vibe of what you're offering and the energy that's behind it, as well as the information that's coming through with the words.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, the process which created the very first form of life is still at work. And it's now the place where that creativity is happening is bringing out a deeper level of consciousness. That's what, you know, one of the things I love as an historian, someone who's written about history, is you can really see how far we've come. And that process, you know, God knows we face all sorts of problems. That will always be the case, I suspect. But we have come so far. And what's happening now is the speeding up of that process. And we're all involved in it. We're all involved in it. And we get to be here for the short while between our birth and our death to play a role in that. And the reason I travel around the world talking to people is to encourage us to engage with that process. Each one of us individually, to make the most of that time and to engage with it.
So, Tim, do you have a personal practice that keeps you steady in amongst all this book writing and traveling and the such like?
I have quite a few things that I dip into. Meditation has always been there for me. I just have come from meditation before I spoke to you. But it's not like I wake up at 6 and I do it, sometimes. Other times, it used to be like that when I was younger. Since I think that ended with the family. The family are quite old now, but one's still at home. And when the family arrived, it was like that went out the window.
Yeah.
So meditation is great, but the practices I teach, I also are to do with connection. So I'm practicing that all the time. Whenever I can, with people, it's about seeing through into the depths of each other. So that's what I love about the practices that I teach at my retreats, is that I call them soul to soul or eye to eye. So you're looking at the depths of another being rather than just meeting on the surface. So you could be practicing that and no one else knows all the time. And that's very transformative. And I like to move. I really like to move my body. And I find that's very transformative. I used to be very involved with Tai Chi when I was much younger. And that's kind of turned, I still do that, but it's turned into a kind of a meditation through spontaneous movement, which really helps, I think, because I'm interested in both waking up out of the body into this deep place and then coming back into the body and feeling the sensuality on that. So,
that, expanding the physicality and then drawing it back in. It's all that's natural qigong,
yeah,
really, isn't it? That
absolutely.
expansion.
Qigong is a wonderful practice for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
Also, I find is coming back to the cup of tea, and a cup of tea tends to solve all our problems. I'm not being flippant, folks. It's true. Tea time. I have asked my guest here today, Mr. Tim Freke, if he has got a cup of tea there. Oh, he's got a cup of tea in a ChiTime mug, and I've got mine in my rainbow mug because I'm in the UK now. I'm not in Austria with my stump cut. And what sort of tea have you got in there, Tim?
I'm an Earl Grey and soy milk man.
Are you? Earl Grey. I've got a green tea and vanilla. It's actually come from Austria. I can't get green tea and vanilla over here, but so I bring it into the country. Secret book, tea contraband. So, cheers.
Mine's already drunk mine.
So fast.
It was just too good.
Oh dear! I always have to have a cup of tea, particularly when I'm, writing and doing stuff. Do you find that when you go into the writing mode, the tea or is it an important part of the
My
ritual?
whole life revolves around my office, the kettle. My office, the kettle. My office, the kettle.
So, have you got a kettle in your office?
No, I work. I have an office at the bottom of my garden. So I'm in my garden. I walk up to the house, say hello to the family if they're there, and my wife Debbie, who works in the house. She has her office in the house, so I kind of come in, make everyone tea. Off I go again. Do a little bit more.
That's probably good because it suggested that we shouldn't spend too much time in front of screens. And so if the kettle is further away from your screen, you'll at least get up and do some spontaneous movement perhaps and, do a few deep breaths and stuff back in. So I'm fascinated, Tim, that you've just done all this book writing. I know you've been writing books for ages, and there's a fantastic interview that you've done with Richard Cox about your book writing process. So I don't want to go over the same questions that he did, and that is available on YouTube, and we'll put the link to that somewhere on the ChiTime page so that people can get into that. But over this summer, so I asked Tim if he would come in to interview. I probably Easter time, and he's like, and I was talking to your lovely wife, and she said, "Oh, he's busy rewriting 2 books and writing a new one." I'm like, "Okay, I'm sorry I asked." It's like, what a busy man. So, what inspired you to rewrite those 2, and then let's talk about the conscious writing process.
Well, I mean, the rewrites were actually the idea of the publisher. The publisher went, "Look, I think we want to get these out again. I think we could make it shorter." And at first I thought, can I? And then I looked at it and thought, that's a brilliant, brilliant idea. I can actually make it. And it was magic, really, because the mystery experience is about awakening and about science. So I just took out the science, and the book was shorter and clearer. And it was like, oh, perfect. And then just wrote some new material, because the new book I'm writing is very much about science. So I was able to move that over and really, really focused on the new book. So what makes me, I try and resist it. It's a hell of a task. I mean, I'd love to be here going to people who are looking to write a book going, it's just such a joy. You sit there and the muse arrives. But that's not my experience. My experience is when I start to write a major book, I know I'm going on a long, wonderful, but transformative journey, which will have great highs and probably a few lows. That will require me to feel at certain times there's a certain arrogance to writing, which is absolutely necessary. You have to feel I have something to say that no one else is saying, and I have to say it, because otherwise you would never have I would never have the patience to put in the hours that it takes to get it right. Not just the words on the page, but to get the ideas right, to know what it is I'm going to say. Because when I start a process, it starts with a epiphany. It starts with a very powerful, oh my God, I have to communicate this. But the only problem is I don't quite know what this is. I feel it, it's there. I know the essence of it, but I trust now that if I dedicate myself completely to following the thread, it will arrive. But to go through that process, I have to put in for this latest book, I did just walking in the country. And I'm just talking to myself, in effect. I'm thinking, just going through the ideas and what's wrong with them. I'm a philosopher, so I spend most of my time showing what's wrong with the things I'm thinking and why they don't work. And then eventually, when I can't do that anymore, I know I've got something to say.
Interesting. We'll talk about don't shoot the critic. No, shoot the critic. I don't know. Anyway, but that idea.
There's two phases to that.
Okay.
See, it's like everything's paralogical. Everything needs opposites.
Great. I knew you were going to mention this word. He's mentioned paralogical. Go to him.
That's the basis of everything I do philosophically. It's the basis of the Deep Awake book that's coming out and the Mystery Experience before. So there are times where you do not act critically. So in the inspirational part of the work, just let it happen. Just go with the ideas. Just delight in them. Just feel the inspiration. Feel that sense of, yes, I've got this to do and it's going to be great and I can see it like this and maybe like that. And let any crazy idea arise. The crazier the better, because then they'll really come out of the box. Then there's another period where you need to go, okay, so now let's look at this critically. What is right? What is good? What's not good? So create, criticize, create, criticize, create, criticize. And then with that natural flow, like an in-breath and out-breath, then I think we get real quality.
Oh, lovely. So out in nature, paralogical thinking, thinking outside the box, thinking inside the box, playing music. Do you play music while you work? Because we're leading up to your next track now.
No, never. I wish. I love music too much. I mean, when I was younger, like most of us, I used to have music in the background the whole time. Now I'm older. I just can't do it. Because if I put the music on, I'll listen to the music.
Yeah.
And I'll sink into the music.
But this next track that you've chosen is particularly beautiful. It is one that you could have in the background while you're, certainly maybe if you're doing a Tai Chi Qigong yoga practice, maybe, rather than...
Absolutely.
Would you like to introduce it for us, please?
I use a lot of it. It's called Quanta Qualia. It's a choral piece. I use it at my retreats a lot because it's a beautiful, moving piece. I heard it for the first time on the radio when I was with my father when he was dying. It just happened to come on. He always had Radio 3 on in the background, and it happened to come on, and it was so beautiful. I went and found what it was, and I've used it ever since. If you may be able to do a link to this as well, Clara, but there's a lovely video I made called The Mystery Experience, which is about what we wake up to. And it's a beautifully shot video, which someone made for me. And I use throughout that, I use this piece of music. So you can listen to it on YouTube afterwards, along with me explaining a little bit about what it's like to experience the deep awake state.
Super. And we're back with Tim after this next beautiful track for you. Hello, so you're back into your Chi Time with me, Clara Apollo, and this evening I have for you the Gnostic philosopher and all-around top chap, Mr. Tim Freke, who's been talking to us about paralogical thinking and mystery experiences and lots of other really cool stuff. So writing books, that was it, conscious writing. So I would have thought all your writing is conscious. You know, that is what you're doing, isn't it? You're bringing your consciousness down onto the page.
Do you know what? I think actually probably all my writing is unconscious.
Okay, what is consciousness? Okay, so
I think the conscious bit is the reflective bit. You remember when we talked earlier about create, criticize? I think there's an unconscious swelling up from the depths, which happens. And then there's a reflectiveness, which looks at it, which is more critical, actually, which allows you to look at it. But there's something wonderfully unconscious, a bit like when you dancing is unconscious, or playing a musical instrument. You know, that when you know how to play, you just play. Yeah. It just happens, just jamming. You're not thinking about it; it's just jamming. So it's that kind of spontaneous thing when it works. And then you kind of reflect on it and see how it needs to be better, because expressing things clearly it's a hard thing to do.
It is. might I, rather than the word critic, can we bring in the word discerning, so that you have a discernment?
Discerning.
And then it's not so harsh.
Yes,
it feels.
discriminate.
Well, discriminates a little bit.
Critic can feel harsh, can't it?
Critic can feel harsh, but I know that part of what you're doing here, I was reading about that you have a skeptical approach. You're wanting to find the truths and stuff, and people often think that people who are skeptic are hard and they're not looking, but actually we're the ones that are curious to look at things from all sides. And I think, wasn't it the Daddy Ching was
if
the
you
first...
want to become conscious.
What?
Sorry, Claire. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Sorry, the internet's a little bit slow. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It is a bit. What was I? Yeah, I was saying the first book that you translated was the Daddy Ching, and that, of course, is paralogical thinking at its best, really. And I always feel that when you read that book, if you don't understand what's going on, you've got it, which is like a really bizarre way of reading something, because it puts you into an altered state of the unconscious. Biggest part of you actually knows what's really going on, not the intellect that thinks it does.
Yes, and the intellect too. And the intellect's a great thing. Look, the problem is that so much spirituality, nearly everyone, is caught up in either-or logical thinking. Whereas what I'm suggesting is paralogical both-and thinking. So if you're stuck in logical thinking and you're offered skepticism and criticism, it sounds like, oh, that's not very nice, because then I won't have any creativity and acceptance. And I want those. What I'm saying is, look, you have them both. Because if you have all of that soft stuff without the sharp stuff, this will be flabby. It won't be very good. If you just have this hard stuff, it will be aggressive and difficult. But you don't have to choose. You can have both. So, for instance, skepticism is the only thing that will wake you up. And it happens through the mind. And the mind is not an enemy. The mind is your greatest ally. But it's two-sided. So it can be a problem or it can be a friend. Make it a friend. If you grow up through a culture, if you do not get to the point where you can doubt your culture, you will never awaken. You will just believe everything that's put in you unconsciously. And you see that across the world. How many people are out there professing their belief in whatever it is, Christianity, Islam, something, atheism even, whatever it is, because that's what their mum and dad said. That's not their beliefs. It just happens to be where they were born. If they've been, their baby had been stolen at birth and brought up in a different country, they'd be saying the same things about the opposite thing. They found no truth. None. It's purely cultural identity. Only when we doubt, think for ourselves, can we awaken. And that's why the mind is so important. So when spirituality makes us doubt the mind or see these things as purely negative, it does us a great disservice. The reason it does it is because we think we're going to lose our heart. That if we value our head, we'll lose our heart. Well, we won't, because we've got a head and a heart. Yeah. We've got both. Yeah. And what we need to do is see that they fit together. And that's what I'm doing with this deep awake life approach to awakening. So you have both. So you cannot be frightened of these words. You can actually embrace them, because you know you're not going to lose the opposite. It's just like when you feel the oneness, you don't have to feel you're going to lose your separateness, your individuality. You won't. That's there too. In fact, the more you have both the opposites, the bigger both get. So the clearer you think, the more your heart will open. The more heart opens, the clearer you can think. They work together. They do.
Wow. Tim Freke is here with us this evening on Chi Time, spouting forth inimitable wisdom like only he can indeed. So I'm just getting that feeling of, where's the center of this? So have we got a perspective point where we're viewing these expansions and these contractions? And I, as you were talking there, I really felt that my heart seemed to be what was the place to come back into and then expand from. And that if the heart is the all-wise, the all-understanding, the all-connective, then it's the mind that would do best to listen to the heart, rather than the heart can't listen to the mind because it doesn't take much notice, does it?
Yeah, again, I think written into that, Clara, is all of the spiritual down on the mind. I think it's just that whole, this is the boss and this is the little guy. I don't think it's like that.
No,
I think there's a deep oneness which is love.
Yes.
And you step into that oneness, and there's this all-embracing love. And I don't know, we call it the heart, but it's not really the heart, is it? It's a deep place within us where there's one of us, and it's love. The issue then becomes, how do you love?
Mm-hmm.
How do you love, actually? My dad, who I loved, and, he's dead now, and was a great man in many ways, was also an alcoholic. How do you love then? Do you go, yes, Dad, I'll go and buy you a bottle of whiskey, and he's pleased? Or do you go, no, I won't do that, and he hates you? What is it? What is it to love then? That's wisdom. And the heart is not there telling you that. That is something you learn. You learn through experience. The love is there, but you gain wisdom. You gain wisdom in the soul. And that requires you to be able to think and question and not do the obvious thing. And to know that sometimes to love is to do things which people find hard. To yourself also. It's a multi-dimensional journey we're on. It's not as simplistic as that. Yes. And the wisdom we gain by being able to use all of us, so that deep place, it feels like it doesn't have all the answers. It has the love. It wants us to find the answers by making the life journey and becoming wise. So that what we're really acquiring is something which I see as one thing, love wisdom. And we only acquire that. It's not just like there. We acquire it by making the journey of life. The love is just there, but the wisdom, we all know this. You acquire the wisdom by making mistakes, by messing up, by learning, by struggling, by suffering, by surprising yourself, but by making the journey of life. That's how you become wise. No other way.
Oh, brilliant. But sometimes the mind can get carried away and cause anxiety problems. I think that's what gives the mind a bad press.
That's absolutely right. The mind is everything is ambiguous. Everything has two sides. So yes, of course, what is the mind? What we call the mind is really just talking to ourselves. It's imagining talking. So I'm talking now, but now I'm going to do it without you hearing. And I call that thinking. Mm-hmm. So that's imagining talking. Well, we can talk here about really, deep, wonderful things, or we could talk rubbish, or we could get really anxious together, or I could go on my own and get really anxious. So what we think, the thinking is just thinking, just like talking is just talking. Then it becomes, what content do you put in it? Mm-hmm. That's the issue. Do you want to talk about something which can wake you up? In which case the mind will be a hugely powerful tool. We're using it right now.
Yes.
But if you get caught in a cycle, a habit, something from the past, something where the soul is damaged, something where there's anxiety, and we all get that at different times, well, everyone gets that, then of course the mind is something you want to step out of. So to have the facility, not to reject the mind, but not to be stuck in it, so that you're aware of this deep silence and you're aware of the words. So that when the words are causing you a problem, you step out into the silence and let the words change. Mm-hmm. And then the words can be inspirational rather than just this cycle of anxiety. So that's my appeal really, is to go, look, see that the mind, like everything, like you and I, has two sides. There's a side to Tim which is really quite difficult, and there's a side to Tim where he's really great. There's a side to everything like that.
It's true.
And what we need to do is be able to live with them both, and then find a way of lovingly integrating them and bringing out the best in ourselves. So we want to bring out the best. I want to bring out the best in Tim, and I want to bring out the best in my mind. And but there is another side. Of course there is. And
of course you help us to bring out the best of ourselves through your writing. And that was just beautiful. And I would love to talk to you about unconditional love and conditional love, but I think we're running out of time. So will you come back again and talk to us soon about your latest book? Because
I would love to. Yeah, I'll come back and tell about Soul Story when it's because otherwise it's a bit of a tease anyway, because it's not available yet for people to actually read.
I wonder, Tim, before we do wrap up this edition of Chi Time, we play your last tune, whether you've got a short little process that we could take listeners through to help them connect with the deep awake state. What do you reckon?
Yes, I do. So this track, which I'm going to play, is one of many tracks I use. I use a lot of music. And one of the things I do is I get people to connect from the depths of their being to the depths of being in another person. So what you're doing in effect is meditation with somebody else. And when I run the Deep Awakening, we do something called the Deep Immersion, where you do that with as many as 30, 40 people. I've done it with 90. And it's just extraordinary because your heart just explodes. And I put music in the background because it's lovely and it helps people relax into it. And this is one of the tracks I use. So in essence, what I do is something we can touch on that right now.
That would be super. Okay, thank you.
Because if you become conscious of my eyes and I become conscious of yours, and for those people, it doesn't matter that, you're watching a video, because you can still do this now.
Mm-hmm.
You can do this now, and you can see and feel that what you see is my face. What you see, of course, is a screen showing my face, and that's what I see of you. But even if we were connected in the same room, I would not be connecting with your face. What I'm connecting with is another conscious being looking back at me. So that you see my eyes, but what you're connecting with, you can't see it, but you know it's there. Right now, the presence of conscious being is connecting with the presence of conscious being through looking. Something which can't be seen is connecting with something that can't be seen through looking. Spirit is the old-fashioned word for it. Consciousness is the modern word for it, or awareness. Is connecting with awareness through this flow of experiences. And that is happening all the time, whenever we pay attention to it. We are reaching through the forms and connecting with the formless all the time. And whenever we pay attention, our experience shifts, because we see both the forms and we're conscious of the formless, of being the formless.
Brilliant.
And it's a lovely thing to feel, isn't it? Just a lovely thing to feel.
And even if you're listening to this, you can still feel that connection, because maybe you've got someone in the room with you that you can look into their eyes, or you can just imagine being with our presence here, and the combined presence of me and Tim, and then you lot out there around the world. And this,
it's an astonishing thing, Clara. But that I've heard people say that if you connect with either of us on this video while we just do that, you will still sense that you're connecting through form to consciousness, because the place you're connecting through to is that place which is actually, in a sense, beyond time, because it's got no form. And I think you will still get it. If you dive in, you will get it.
Yeah, it's there. And that's where we all meet. That's where the one is.
That's where the one is, because it has no form. Because form is where everything has a boundary. But when we connect in that deeper place, what you start realizing is that you're connecting with yourself in a very deep level. So that there's this place where we're one, and there's this place where we're two. And when you have conscious of both, that's the love. The love is how the oneness feels to the individual. So when you see, we're two individuals and we're one, that's where the love comes into the body. You can feel that connectivity. And that's what I do at my Deep Awakenings. I take people, everyone, to that space. If people want to experience this, it really is available to them. I don't want to sound like a salesman, but it just is. They can come along, and I can pretty much guarantee you will experience this, because it's a breath away. It really is.
Wonderful. And people can connect with you on your website, timfreke.com. Yeah. And that's freak, not spelt the freak way, but spelt freak way.
Yes, they have to get that bit right. Freke, a funny old West Country name.
And also you have Facebook page and all that kind of stuff, don't you?
Yeah.
And so people will be listening to this towards the end of September. What's happening for you in October that they might be interested in coming up, or should they just have a look on your?
Well, We've got events happening the whole time, but the next big event is in November, and it's a deep awakening. And this is where I take a smallish group, but they're not too big. I don't want them too big. And we have the Abbey House in Glastonbury, which is this beautiful old place overlooking the Abbey ruins, right in the middle of Glastonbury, right near the town centre. We have 30, 40 people maybe, and we will go through a weekend of exploring how we can experience this deep awake state for myself. So it's a mixture of me sharing ideas and people actually putting these ideas into practice. And my aim will be that every single person by the Saturday night is experiencing that deep awake state and that big love in a way they can't possibly miss. And that it's a life transforming and invigorating, and they go back feeling deep self-empowered, that they've seen something and they've got something. And so far, it has been generally the case.
It is, and it's the experience. Excuse me, if you've had the experience, then that sits with you, and that's very real, and you can then it shifts and changes your vibration, doesn't it? And then people that come into your arena also can pick up on those ripples. But look, I tell you what, we're going to have to do another interview, Tim, because there's so much more to talk with you about. And we have just agreed, hot off the press, that Tim's going to come to Bournemouth for Conscious Living events on the 18th of April 2017, which is the day after the release of his Soul
Story.
Soul Story. Thank you. Sorry, lots of notes here behind the scenes. Not some of them. Can't read them. Anyway, so yeah, so let's do that. So until then, thank you so much for being part of Chi Time again, Mr. Tim Freke.
It's been an absolute delight.
Yeah, it's been fun, isn't it? And we're going to play your last track, and that's the one that you were explaining before. You tend to put it underneath your meditations when you do them. So would you like to just introduce that, its name and all that sort of stuff for listeners, please? Unless you can't remember the name.
My mind has gone completely blank.
Okay, it's called Afterglow. That's a clue.
Afterglow, yes. It's got a fantastic beat. It'll kick in.
Great. Good. Anyway, look, thank you so much. We're going to play that shortly. I'm just going to finish up the show by saying you can find out about Tim on timfreke.com, more about Chi Time on the Chi Time Facebook page, also any playbacks via my website, claireapollo.com, where you can go to for all things Chi as well. Got some Qigong sessions and meditations happening. And of course, Conscious Living Events is on consciouslyevents.co.uk. We've got some fantastic speakers and performances occurring in the rest of the year. And of course, we're going to look forward to Tim coming on the 18th of April. So thank you so much for listening. Do enjoy this wonderful track and keep your chi up, my friends. Here's Afterglow.